Hello and welcome to today's show at OurGame. Myself, Shane Stapleton, along with Carey Power, and Kieran Carey will be with us in a few minutes. But I suppose we have the Kilkenny man here on the line right away. We might as well ask you, there's just so many rumours going around that Brian Cody, is he going to remain at the helm after 24 years in charge? And I don't think I've ever heard rumours like this about his position before. Before it would just be, everything goes quiet, a statement would come out, Brian Cody's remaining on. But I mean, this is different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's totally different, Shane. And I suppose, look, I would have heard whispers about it Tuesday evening, that there was an announcement coming on Wednesday. I would have received a few phone calls from all over the country, to be honest, yesterday with regards to it. And I suppose, look, no one knows at the moment what's happening. I think the only person that probably knows is Brian himself and possibly people within the county board. I don't know. But look, as you said, you know, it has been mentioned before and everything's gone quiet, and suddenly the announcement is made that Brian has been ratified for his 23rd, 24th season. So, look, until there's actually a statement or an announcement, I'd be taking that he will be in charge for his 25th season. But as I said, the rumours have been rampant. So, look, we'll just have to wait to see what happens over the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I thought this can't be true is I can't imagine Brian Cody will go around confiding in a lot of people that, yeah, I'm about to step down, and that those people would continue on the whisper. I mean, that's the part that I found strange. It didn't add up to me.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you, you know, 100%. Now, look, unless something was leaked within, I don't know, would you say within the management team or from the county board or something, but I don't think so. Like, I think you're right. I think Brian's one of those guys that keeps things close to his chest. And like, to be fair, would he have made that decision so quickly after losing an All-Ireland final? I find that hard to believe. And if the decision was made that quickly, you'd imagine that maybe the decision was made a lot earlier than this. You know, maybe it was made at the beginning of the year, similar to JJ. I remember JJ telling me about 2014 that you know, he sat down with Aisling and said that this was going to be his last year. He was going to enjoy it, and you know, win, lose or draw, he wasn't. You know, that was going to be his final year. So, you know, maybe that was the case with Brian. He had decided that, you know, this was going to be his final year, and it's just a matter of waiting and when he does announce it. But again, look, I have no idea. I have no insight into it. So I'm, you know, just waiting to see what happens over the next couple of days.
Yeah. Do you think that let's imagine that he did go. We had this situation in Meath where Sean Boylan was there for 23 years or something like that, and they've possibly never fully recovered from it. You know, that Alex Ferguson type figure, and then someone struggles to fill the void of the guy who's just in charge of everything. Do you think there could be any sort of issues with Kilkenny and being the man in after Brian Cody, or do you think that there are enough good candidates that wouldn't be an issue?
Look, I think there's plenty of good candidates, but obviously, like, we have to be realistic here. You know, like, if it does happen, and someone new is brought in, whoever it is, you know, has to be, I won't say given time, but like, they have to be, you know, given time to kind of settle in, get their own stamp on things, get to know the players on a personal level, you know, and that doesn't happen overnight. You know, like, that doesn't happen over the course of one season. So I think the supporters and the people of Kilkenny will realise that too, you know, when we go in, and the county board will have to realise that as well. I know we've seen something similar in Tipperary, but to be honest, I just feel, you know, the names being mentioned around are Derek Ling, Eddie Brennan. You know, Henry's obviously name is going to be put into the mix, but obviously he's contracted to Galway for the next 2 years. So, you know, if it was the likes of Derek, you know, after winning the under-20 All-Ireland, it seems like a natural, you know, progression. And obviously then maybe some of those players making the step up to the senior panel for next season. So, and obviously Derek would know a lot of the players that are in there at the moment as well. So, look, as I said, it remains to be seen what's going to happen. But, you know, inevitably it's going to happen one day. So if it happens this year, you know, we just have to move on, and the next man steps in. And, you know, but I think the big thing here is to give him time, you know, and it's not a case where you're going to kind of demand an All-Ireland final from a new manager going in. it is going to be a rebuilding process, and that manager is going to want to put his stamp on his team, and hopefully that's what will happen.
Kieran, how are you doing today?
I'm good, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Kieran, how are you?
I'm good, Richie. How's the farm?
Sure, all right now. All right.
Good.
We're going to come to the All-Ireland review in a little while, Kieran, but your own thoughts on this rumour mill swirling around at the moment that Brian Cody might be about to step down. Can you quite believe it, or do you get the sense that this might be a red herring?
I suppose my own feeling leading into the game last week, I was hoping, and I did see a huge push from Kilkenny. And I suppose, like no different to any manager, you'd like to go on a bit of a high. And I reckon if Kilkenny had jumped the fence last week, it probably wouldn't be up for discussion. I'd say he'd walk away on that particular note. And to be fair, I suppose, his achievements with Kilkenny, his longevity with Kilkenny, and, the types of teams that he did kind of put through his hand in Kilkenny. He owes nothing to Kilkenny. And he's done a super job, and I suppose that's his own choice, as Richie said. And he has been given that respect because of the amount that he did achieve in Kilkenny, and only he can call that. And possibly, there has been a lot of speculation about it. And I suppose the big thing for me really is coming from the 90s. And up to the modern game in 2022. And it took him a small little while to adjust to the new game and the modern game. And, he built a team around him that were really more in tune with that. Eventually he saw that. So myself personally, I have serious respect for him. And, it's a call everybody has to make when you have the title as a manager. And what I would be suggesting is, let him make that call himself. And, there's no rush to it. The season is finished now. And he'll obviously have to do a bit of debriefing in around that in himself and his family. And, let's see what call he does make.
Absolutely. So, Kieran, just to even move over to another of your neighbouring counties there, Tipperary, and what's happened there in the past week. Colin Bonner has departed. Liam Cahill has stepped down from Waterford. He's now the Tipperary manager. A week really is a short time or a long time in hurling.
It is. But to be fair, it was fairly predictable too. We had a little discussion about it last week. And, once that was on the cards, once Liam kind of, removed himself from the Waterford position, I don't think you had to be a genius or a professor to figure out what was going to happen next. So, it was fairly straightforward after that. And, he's in the hot seat now. And let's wait and see what he'll do, because at the end of the day, Shane, anytime you have the title as a manager, whether we like it or not, you're going to be judged on performances. You're going to be judged on every game that you play, and at the end of the day, you're going to be judged really on silverware. So I'm sure he's aware of that. So I've no doubt or hesitation that he'll rally Tipperary, and I'd say watch the space.
Yeah, Richie, would you be inclined to think now, compared to the week ago, you'd be more worried about Tip going into next season than you had been?
I suppose. Yeah, you'd imagine there's going to be some sort of bounce factor, Shane. But is the personnel going to be any different to what Colin Bonner had at his disposal this year? That's my big question. Obviously, Liam knows a lot of the younger players well, and the players that he would have won under 20 All Irelands with. But I think I mentioned last week with regards to those players having not been brought into the senior panel as of yet. They're 3 or 4 years behind on strength and conditioning. So I can't see any of those players making a huge impact if they're brought into the Tipperary setup next year. Now, can Liam Cahill turn things around? Absolutely. But I don't think it's going to happen in 12 months. I really don't. I think I would be looking at Tipperary being serious contenders in 2 to 3 years' time. And look, if he turns it around before that, well, fair play to him. He's by far a much better manager than I highly rate Liam Cahill. But if he can turn Tipperary into contenders next year, well, fair play to him. But I personally, I just can't see it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the All-Ireland final.
Can I just make one comment there, Shane, on that?
You can, of course.
Yeah, because in fairness, and we all get caught up in talking about managers, right? And yeah, they have a huge role. But in my opinion, possibly the biggest role of all is your coach with the modern game. And I believe if he's the right coach with him, looking at Tipperary in spells this year, especially against Limerick, I agree to an extent what Richie's saying, probably 2 to 3 years' time, but I wouldn't rule out if he got a serious kick from him either at the start. Because, every manager is duty bound to get the best out of every player, and he possibly might get probably a small bit more out of him than what Cullum got. So, I'd say he could do a small bit of damage even in his first year.
And actually, I suppose we might as well ask, what do you think is going to happen with Waterford? There's plenty of names being banded around, Kieran, some of the probably obvious high-profile names. But what do you think they need?
Shane, it's hard to know, right? And in fairness, when you look at Brian Cody, he's been loyal to one jersey and one jersey only, to be fair, all his life. And you have to respect that. There's a lot of managers out there that they've Mandela Park already done. So it's hard to know, Shane. And I mean that in a nice way. You don't know with Waterford. You genuinely don't know with Waterford. All speculation, really. And I suppose, probably who doesn't get the Dublin job will be in for a show for the Waterford job. That appears the way it appears to be going. And, county boards appear to be accepting that.
Yeah, it's true. Richie, they're your neighbours, I suppose, in Waterford, not too far away. What do you think they need? Because even Kieran, before the start of the season, he was talking about how brilliant they had been in the league, but he did say the stuff between the ears, can they keep their emotional composure, I think was the term he used going into the season. What do you think they might need for 2023?
I suppose, look, personally, Shane, I don't think they need an awful lot. Performance-wise, ability-wise, and players at the disposal, I think they have it all. But it's probably needs that something similar to the lady that was involved with Limerick, Caroline Curd, I think is her name. Someone like that to come into the setup, get as much access to the players as she possibly can, and just to kind of see, can she work with them as closely as she can. And I think if they can get that, get a good manager, get a good man manager in place. Now, I believe from whispers coming from Waterford, some of the senior members of the panel weren't too keen on Liam staying on. So I don't know how true that is. But I think just someone that can go in, man manage, a good hurling coach, as Kieran said, that's up to today's kind of standard and up to today's game. I don't think they're that far away. Possibly they just peaked too soon this year. And I think that's exactly what happened. They were outstanding in the league. They won the league at a canter, and suddenly then the whole season fell flat. And once that happens, it's very hard to pick things back up again. So, I think something like that is badly needed down there. Kieran was right what he said at the start of the year. It's just probably what's between the ears. And if they can get that right, well, then they will become serious contenders again.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's at the end of the free segment. If you want to see the rest of the show, go to patreon.com/OurGame. For more exclusive content, go to patreon.com/OurGame.